Hey guys, good morning or afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. We are going to begin a very new unit. This is probably one of the most important units as it absolutely impacts from here until the rest of your time with me here in culinary. So it is super critical that you're following along and paying attention to this material and just going ahead and submitting it to memory. A lot of this unit is 100% about keeping food safe. How is it that we can protect ourselves? How is it that we can protect others? Especially seeing as we do serve a good number of other people in this program. And so this unit is going to be so critical for you to be paying attention. So we're going to start today with just a background information. As we go into ServSafe, what you're going to learn today really does help to set a solid foundation. So in regards to keeping food safe, we're going to learn the ServSafe material, and this is set out by the hospitality industry, really. In Culinary 1, you've got the option of being ServSafe certified. If you go into any restaurant these days, you'll notice those little blue certificates that say ServSafe certification. At least one person on the shift, whoever's in the building, at least one person has to be ServSafe certified at all times. If the building is open, someone has to be ServSafe certified. So I do allow my students to get ServSafe certified. I'm a certified instructor and proctor, so I can do that for you. I usually have anywhere between 15 to 20 students that take the time to get ServSafe certified in Culinary 1, and with that they can take it to their employer and say, hey, look, I'm ServSafe certified, and that may actually get you a raise as well. So there are benefits to knowing this information. Okay, so foodborne illness is an illness caused by food. Quite simply put, it is what it is. However, we have what we call a foodborne illness outbreak. I would write this down. This is one of the definitions that you're going to need to know. A foodborne illness outbreak is an incident where two or more people get sick after eating the same food. Now let's talk about what it means to be the same food. Say, for instance, you go to, let's say, Moe's. Moe's seems to be a popular place. Who doesn't like Moe's? So at Moe's, you decide that you're going to get a chicken burrito. And so you go down the line, you get this burrito, you've got your beans, you've got your rice, you've got all these other toppings on your burrito, and you check out and you go and you have lunch and you eat your burrito. And the next person comes in and they decide that they're going to order tacos. They're also getting chicken. And they get all their toppings, they sit down, they have lunch, and then about 3 or 4 hours later, both of them are experiencing symptoms that may lead to diarrhea, vomiting, maybe they've got a little bit of nausea, any of those things, and they've both determined that they got a foodborne illness. The same food in this scenario is that they both ate chicken. Okay, one had a burrito and one had a taco, but they both had chicken. It was both from Moe's. It was both chicken, yielding what is considered to be a foodborne illness outbreak. You might remember Chipotle a couple years ago. They had a pretty big outbreak. Obviously, that impacted a lot more than just 2 people. All right, so there are some challenges to food safety. One of them is time. We're going to spend about 3 to 4 weeks going over this information. Okay, it seems like a lot of time. So do employers who at these restaurants, do they have 4 weeks to go over this information? No, time is absolutely a challenge. Language and culture. Let me give you an example. My mom is from England. And when we travel to England, we go into the grocery store and you'll be walking up and down the aisles, and suddenly, just on a non-refrigerated aisle, you will see their eggs. Well, in America, you never see eggs just sitting out on an aisle. They're always in a refrigerator section. Well, there's something that's different about the eggs in England. We'll talk about that in Culinary 1. There's something that happens, or doesn't happen rather, that in England the eggs do not require refrigeration, but here in America they do. So say someone from England decides to come and move to America, and now they're working in a kitchen. And they happen to leave eggs out on the countertop because, well, that's what they did in their previous home. Culture changes things, okay? They came from where it was appropriate, and they're coming somewhere to where it's not appropriate. You can't, that's a challenge. Everywhere we go, there are different rules of food and sanitation. Language, also, if you can't understand English, you're gonna have a hard time getting these concepts. If you think about a lot of our chefs and a lot of people who are cooking in restaurants, they may not understand English. Okay, that's a barrier. That's hard to deal with. Literacy and education. You may also think a lot of these people may not have the mental capacity to really understand this material. If they don't, that could be another challenge in trying to understand the rules of food safety. Pathogens, just in general, any bacteria, virus, fungi, if it causes illness, it's considered a pathogen. Guys, bacteria, fungi, viruses, all of they're naturally found. We can't suddenly get rid of them. So it is just a challenge to food safety. We've got to figure out how we work around the fact that pathogens are a part of everyday life. Unapproved suppliers, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of days when we talk about purchasing and receiving. High-risk populations, we're going to do an activity here in just a moment, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but they are a challenge to food safety and staff turnover. Think about maybe you've gone into a job before. You've only stayed for a couple of weeks and then you've gone again. Well, if a lot of restaurants, if they experience a lot of this turnover and every 3 or 4 weeks they're getting someone new in, it's hard to get them all caught up on training. It's a challenge for them to understand food safety as it relates to their establishment. All right, the cost of foodborne illness. Think about that Chipotle outbreak a couple of years ago, okay? Did anyone want to go eat at Chipotle? No, so they lost their customers. Negative media exposure. Everybody knew, especially with social media these days, those stories were going viral. People were putting on their Facebook or their Instagram, or it was the news sites, that Chipotle had this huge outbreak. And suddenly, Chipotle's not looking so good anymore. Lawsuits and legal fees, okay? You get in a car accident, what you gonna do, okay? You're very likely going to have a lawsuit or some legal fees. So what happens if a restaurant gets a lot of people sick? Same thing's gonna apply. Lawsuits and legal fees, which yields increased insurance premiums. Your parents, if you've gotten in a car wreck before, like, are you serious? Our insurance rates just skyrocketed. A restaurant would experience the same thing if they got those people sick. Loss of reputation. It took Chipotle a long time to kind of get back to some reputable customers. I think they're kind of on the mend now, but I haven't been to Chipotle for quite some time. Why? Because I don't know if food safety was their number one expectation. Lowered employee morale, Basically, no one wants to work. Would you want to work for Chipotle if you knew that your company was making lots of people sick, or your restaurant was making people sick? Probably not. Just like I take pride, we cater all the time in here. Well, if we suddenly go and get a lot of people sick at the faculty breakfast that we provided food for, what students are going to want to take my class? Why would you say, oh, I want to take culinary with Mrs. Bodenhammer because she gets people sick? It doesn't work like that. So the reason I impress upon this so much is that we are known for making good food, but we're also known for providing people food that's not going to get them sick, okay? And so students want to take this class, at least I hope they do, because there's that morale there. They're proud of the products that they make, and it's not going to get people sick. Employee absenteeism, well, that goes along with the employee morale. If you don't want to go to work at a place that's going to get people sick, you certainly don't want to show up. All right, and then staff retraining. Chipotle had to shut down every single one of their facilities one or 2 days a couple of years ago. So for 2 days, they made no profits. Why? Because they had to retrain their staff. They had to prove to them that they were doing everything that they could to show people that they were taking food and the safety of their food seriously. All right, contamination. Basically, contamination, if I was to put it in my own words, it's not supposed to be there, okay? Especially as it relates to food. There's something in my food and it's not supposed to be there. That's how I talk about contamination. So as it relates to food, there are 3 types of contamination that we look at: biological, physical, and chemical. Okay, biological, physical, and chemical. Biological, anything living. Just like if you were to take a biology class, you're looking at life, okay? Physical, I can physically see it in my food, okay? A couple of exceptions, just a little bit, but for the most part, physical, anything I can see in my food. It's not supposed to be there, but yet it's still there. And chemical, that one pretty much speaks for its own. So just go through these with me. Think about it before I give you the answer as to where you think this particular contaminant belongs. Salmonella. If you said biological, you are correct. Hand soap. If you said chemical, you are correct. E. coli. If you said biological, you are correct. Bleach. If you said chemical, you are correct. Bacteria. If you said biological, you are correct. A Band-Aid. Ew, a Band-Aid in my food? I can physically see it. If you said physical, you are correct. Virus. If you said biological, you are correct. Hair. Have you ever pulled a hair out of your food before? While it might not make you physically sick, it's disgusting to think about if you pull out that hair of someone's food. That is a physical contaminant. Nails. False nails, this is exactly why we talk about no false nails in the kitchen, because they do have the capacity to physically, a physical contaminant, get into our food. Hepatitis A. If you said biological, you are correct, okay? Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an understanding of the 3 types of contaminants that run the risk of getting into our food. Okay, food becomes unsafe from these things. We're going to go into detail about every single one of them in later chapters, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. People are purchasing from unsafe suppliers. Okay, they are failing to cook food to the correct internal temperature. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. They're holding food at incorrect temperatures. They're using contaminated, again, something's on that equipment that's not supposed to be there, contaminated equipment. They're practicing poor personal hygiene, time and temperature abuse, cross-contamination. Okay, we're going to look at all of those in a little bit more detail over our next couple of chapters, as well as poor cleaning and sanitizing. All right, populations at high risk. What do you think about current events? There's a lot going on with this coronavirus. And so with current events, you can answer this question. You can pretty much determine who our high-risk populations are. Basically, a high-risk population is anyone more susceptible or anyone more prone to getting that illness, disease, whatever it may be, okay? Now, we have 3 high-risk populations as it relates to food safety, okay? There are 3 high-risk populations. You can identify 2 of them just based on current events. Can you think of what they are? As it relates to COVID-19 and the coronavirus that is currently going on right now, you should have identified two high-risk populations. Number 1, the elderly. Why? Because they've got a weakened immune system, okay? Their bodies aren't able to fight off everything that's going on in there. So if they eat food, even if it doesn't have a lot of a contaminant in there, it still really runs the risk of getting them sick. We're talking about biological contaminants primarily with high-risk populations. The second one, did you think about it? It is those people who have got a compromised immune system. Anyone who is battling cancer, anyone who's had any transplants, anyone who has had prior health issues, anyone who, for example, has diabetes. All of those are going to be examples of people who have got a weakened immune system because of their pre-existing condition. So we say anybody with those people with those pre-existing conditions are more at risk for developing the coronavirus. Same thing applies to our food. Those people are going to be more susceptible to foodborne illnesses. Now, there's one more population that can really fall in those same things, but doesn't seem to be as affected by the coronavirus, thank goodness. And that is our very, very young, okay? So your babies. So anywhere from infancy, so birth, up until the child goes to preschool or kindergarten, they are considered a high-risk population. Why? Because they too have weakened immune systems. They're not quite built up yet. They're still getting immune to everything that's going on in this world, okay? So 3 high-risk populations as it relates to biological contaminants. Okay, that is things like bacteria, viruses, hepatitis A, E. coli, salmonella are 3 specific examples of that. These populations, the very, very young, the very, very old, and the compromised immune systems are the ones that are more susceptible to getting a foodborne illness, okay? I'm not going to go over this slide. That takes us through our notes for the day. Again, hopefully you took some information down as we went there. I did go through it pretty quickly. At the end of this lesson, you need to know what the 3 types of contamination are, what the 3 high-risk populations are, and you also need to make sure that you are aware of what a foodborne illness outbreak means. All right, if you don't know those 3 things, go back and watch and make sure you take that information with you into the following chapters. I'll see you on the live session soon. Bye.